it's 8 o'clock, so I think we can start. Only Yasmin is supposed to come, and she will come. The recording is there, so there is no problem. So we have to redo this one. Yeah, they have already read it. So yes, I will read each sentence and then we will go slowly and see what he is saying. He has been speaking about the passivity and the activity. Okay, so if you go back again, he has said that first of all, in our human field, in the physical world, there are many things which are voluntary. We do things voluntarily, okay, and that is without active participation. We do things like, I want to go to school, I want to become a doctor. These are all voluntary decisions. But there are many things which also are there involuntarily. Okay. Physical point of view, we know already blood circulation, beating of the heart, digestion, all these things take place involuntarily. If we are not willing it, it happens by itself. In other words, there is a force which is conscious, and there are forces which are apparently unconscious, but they are. You can those movements you can call them force, and that which you are voluntarily doing is conscious. So consciousness and force are there everywhere you can see, and Srivastava is saying that there are so many things which are unconscious, apparently unconscious, but consciousness is there. Okay, and now he is saying the voluntary movements are activity, and those things which are passively being done in the background. So there is an activity and a passivity. Now, if you want to, the same Satchidananda, when it is absolutely silent, it is the spirit. It is the highest Satchidananda. But when that decides to move, it becomes the physical world. So there is no difference between spirit and matter. There is no difference except in movement. When it is not moving, it is Satchidananda, the highest. And when it is moving, it becomes the world. Like Ramakrishna said very clearly, the same sea, when it is silent, it is a spirit. And when that same sea starts making waves, and in fact, it can make waves in very, very interesting ways. First, it can make very gentle, just swelling. If you're sitting on the sea beach, you will see the wave starts by just, the water seems to be rising in a curve and then moving towards the shore. But that wave can become a huge wave and fall, and also it can become a storm. Okay? So there is a gradation of movement. That also is there. So that's what he's discussing now, the gradation of movement. In the physical world, when there is movement, we have ignorance. And when we are at a higher level, when there is no movement, there is knowledge. Okay? So you understand everything. Now, with this background, I start reading the paragraph that we read yesterday. For Brahman does not pass alternatively from passivity to activity and back to passivity by cessation of his dynamic force of being. What he's saying is that both the things are there, passivity and activity. Consciousness and force are there everywhere. They are not, they are there everywhere. They are there in different gradations. So, in fact, they are inversely proportional to each other. Okay? When consciousness increases, the force decreases. And when force increases in matter, consciousness seems to decrease. Okay? So, but is this true only of Brahman? What about the individual? The individual very clearly is coming from his psychic plane, which is static, and is entering into the physical world, which is dynamic. So what is true of Brahman is not true of the individual, the human being. Why only human being? Everything, any creature, they come from up and come down into the activity in the world. And then you go back again. At the end of death, you go back again. So what is true of Brahman is not necessarily true of the individual. But because they're so used to our way of thinking, we think that the divine is creating the world and then he is again withdrawing into himself. And this movement of coming and going is repeated at all the levels, from the level of matter to the level of the higher spirit, consciousness. Consciousness goes inwards and then goes outwards. Inwards, it becomes concentrated, Chit Ghana, the transcendental. Okay? The transcendental is not interested in creation, nor is it interested in creating a world. It just concentrates in itself. That's the transcendental. There's no world there at the transcendental level. Then at the cosmic level, he extends himself. Brahman extends himself and enters into it. Note that it's not that he does not enter into it. He enters into the cosmos of forms. And finally, even in the physical world, he enters into the individual forms. But he is there all the time, and consciousness and force both are there all the time. But in the human consciousness, it's not like that. You come from above, enter into the physical world, and then go out again, come back, until finally you realize what you really are. You are the soul and self, and not the body, mind, life. Then you go back again into the passivity. You go into that which is static. But there, a human soul has got many opportunities. It can do many things. We discussed that, I think, yesterday a little bit. It can remain in the subtle worlds. It can remain in the spiritual worlds. It can remain there and do work. Or it can disappear into the infinite. Okay? It can disappear into the infinite. Or if you are a Sri Arunyodanian with a completely transformed consciousness, you come down into the physical world again and do God's work. Okay? So this is what is possible. So but Brahman does not pass alternately from passivity to activity and back to passivity by cessation of his dynamic force of being. It's not like that, because both are there together all the time in different proportions. If that were really true of the integral reality, then while the universe continued, there would be no passive Brahman. Okay, so what he's saying is, if it is true that the divine is creating and then withdrawing again and going back again, if it was like that, then when he is in the physical world, then there is no Satchidananda. And when he is in Satchidananda passivity, then there is no physical world. But it's not like that, because both are there all the time together. Only the proportion between consciousness and force, or in other words, passivity and activity, goes on changing. Both are there always at the same time. The world exists and the divine also exists. The human being has to experience first the world, understand that there is something else, and then finally graduate to the passivity of the Brahma, Chit, Satchidananda. Okay, so that's what it's saying. Then, if that were really true, what? Coming and going, sequel, in time, that were really true of the integral reality, then while the universe continued, there would be no passive Brahman, obviously, because he's here and then he's there in time. Okay, so is it? Just 1 second. Yeah, so then, and there will be no passive Brahman in existence. All would be action. And if our universe were dissolved, there would be no active Brahman. All would become cessation and immobile stillness. But this is not so. For we can become aware of an eternal passivity and self-concentrated calm, penetrating and upholding all the cosmic activity and all its multiply concentrated movement. Okay? Multiply is an adjective to concentrated. All is multiply concentrated movement. In other words, it's possible for the human soul to experience a consciousness where you are connected with the universe. You are connected with your body, mind, life. The first experience is you are not connected. Okay, that's the Mayavada philosophy and the Buddhist philosophy. But if you go to a slightly higher level, you will see that you are actually the Bharta. We come back to the Gita's grades of the spiritual experience. First, you are the witness. And in the witness, you are unconnected with the world. You are unconnected with your body, mind, life. Then you become the Anumanta. You see that, oh, there is a connection. I was the one who has given permission for my body, mind, life to do whatever it is doing. And why won't the soul do that? Because it wants experience. And experience is possible only when you explore many, many areas. And exploring many areas means going here, going there, experiencing everything, understanding. So that is what is the Anumanta. Then you become, you know that there is a connection. Then there is a Bharta. I am the supporter. I am connected and I only have allowed and I am the Bharta. That's what Srindi is talking about here. He's saying, this is not, where is it going? Yeah. For we can become aware of an eternal passivity and self-concentrated calm, penetrating and upholding all the cosmic activity and all its multiply concentrated movement. There is a clear connection, and I can make a note on this that this is the Bharta consciousness of the Gita. Okay, so just 1 second. As you go on reading more and more, it becomes more and more clear. So what he's saying here is exactly that. Okay, so concentrate. So now, 1 second. Excuse me, but as soon as another idea strikes me, I note it down because otherwise I might forget. The philosophy is so complex. Okay, so this is the consciousness of the Bharta in the Gita. Okay, so control us. Just 1 second. Every time you reread Life Divine, other aspects which you did not notice earlier comes up. So that's the interesting part. So Life Divine, here it is. Then I saved what I've done. Just give me 30 seconds. So what Srindi is saying is, since a human being can experience that he is stationed in the passivity, in a higher consciousness of calm and non-movement, yet he is connected with the movement in the physical world. Okay, so both exist at the same time. Okay, so it's a confirmation that Brahman is there everywhere with his double aspect of consciousness and force. And you can use the word consciousness and force. You can replace them by passivity and activity. You can also replace them by Purusha and Prakriti. Or you can also say spirit and nature. Okay? All these words are the different words but meaning the same thing. Okay? So, if now I continue reading, and if this could not be, if so long as any activity continued, the concentrated passivity did not exist supporting it and within it. So in other words, both are there at the same time. And if it was not so, then when you are in the physical world, there is no God for you. And when you are in the Satchidananda consciousness, there is no world for you. In fact, that's what happens. He's a human being. When he goes there, the world disappears. And when he's in the world, God doesn't exist for him. Okay. So that also is a, but this is the wrong reading. Both are wrong readings. If you go to the highest level, the wrong reading gets corrected altogether. Okay. So that's what he said. So integral Brahman. Integral Brahman, the word integral means he is both passive as well as active. Whereas if you use only the word Brahman, it's only passive. So, the word integral changes the meaning altogether. Integral Brahman possesses both the passivity and the activity simultaneously and does not pass alternatively from one to the other as from a sleep to a waking. It is only some partial activity in us which seems to do that. Okay? That also is not absolutely true of the individual, because the individual is what? What is he? The individual is the universe, but he is not aware of the universe. So again, we come back to the idea of the ignorance. Okay, so, Brahman is not ignorant, but the human being, because he is not aware of his entire being, he is the superconscious, he is the interconscious, he is the subconscious, he is the circumconscious, he is the whole universe. Everything that is there in the universe is also in the human being. There is a connection. The individual is a microcosm, is a concentrated universe, and the universe is an expanded individual. That's why the cosmic consciousness is possible. This is what he says. Integral Brahman possesses both the passivity and the activity simultaneously and does not pass alternately from one to the other as from sleep to a waking. Give me a very interesting example. It is only some partial activity in us which seems to do that. The waking consciousness does that. And we, by identifying ourselves with that partial activity, have the appearance of this alternation from one nation to another nation. So what I said in the beginning, that the individual comes into passivity and goes back into passivity, this is partially true because he is in ignorance. When he is in ignorance, he does not know himself fully. So he has to, that is what it seems to be, that I am from the psychic world, I am coming into the physical world of body, mind, life, where there is only movement. But that's because of our ignorance. Okay? All the time you are actually the whole, you are the concentrated Brahman. Then, next sentence. At the appearance of this alternation from one nation to another nations. Both are nations, huh? The physical world, the materialist, is also not conscious fully, and the ascetic who is saying that the spirit is the only reality, he is also ignorant, but less ignorant perhaps than the materialist, but still ignorant. In fact, that's what the Isha Upanishad says, that one who thinks that he has got the oneness, he is also in ignorance. So how to clear this? Integral Brahman is at the third level, the Supermind. There you have really ignorance disappears. The moment you come down from Supermind to Overmind even, the ignorance starts. Okay? The partial, the division of the undivisible starts at the Overmind level. So that he will tell us at the end of the chapter. Okay? So, at the appearance, but, I'm reading the next phrase, but our integral being is not subject to these opposites, and it does not need to become unaware of its dynamic self in order to possess its self of silence, which is what the Buddhists are saying and also the Mahabharats. If you want the divine static condition, go there and lose your connection with the physical world. So saying, no, that's not necessary. When we get the integral knowledge and the integral liberation of both soul and nature, free from the disabilities of the restricted, partial and ignorant being, we too can possess the passivity and the activity with a simultaneous possession, exceeding both these poles of the universality, limited by neither of these powers of the self in its relation or non-relation to nature. Now, you can ask a question. You can say that nobody has gone to the supramental level as yet. So how does one know that this is possible? Because, as I said earlier, even at the lower levels, you can get glimpses. You can get glimpses of the higher planes. So even if you have a glimpse of that supramental world, you see that this is possible. I can remain in an absolutely calm position, and again, I can be in the physical world without disturbance and without ignorance. But as soon as you come down from there, because it's a temporary experience, when you come down, you must have a very sharp mind to remember the experience. And Sri mind is the sharpest in the world. Okay? Never has it been so sharply defined. Mostly you will see that spiritual men, they don't necessarily have a very developed mind. Okay? Sometimes they don't have a developed mind at all, but in Sri case, high spiritual capacity with a tremendous instrument of mental capacity. The intellectual capacity that he has is absolutely unparalleled among the spiritual people. I'm not speaking of the normal man. Okay? This is what he said. Okay? So, in other words, his whole para is, man thinks that he is going from the physical world to spirit. And when he goes to spirit, he seems to lose the physical world. And when he's in the physical world, he seems to lose God. But this is not necessary. It's possible to have an experience where both are possible. Okay? That's what he said. Now we go to the next para. The supreme, it has been declared in the Gita. Okay? So somebody has to read. That's what yes.
The supreme, it has been declared in the Gita, exceeds both the immobile self and the mobile being. Even put together, they do not represent all he is. For obviously, we do not mean, when we speak of his possessing them simultaneously, that he is the sum of a passivity and an activity, an integer made of these two fractions, passive with 3/4 of himself, active with 1/4 of his existence. In that case, Brahman might be a sum of nescences, the passive 3/4 not only indifferent to, but quite ignorant of all that the activity is doing. The active 1/4 quite unaware of the passivity and unable to possess it except by ceasing from action. Even Brahman, the sum, might amount to something quite different from his two fractions, something, as it were, up and aloof, ignorant of and irresponsible for anything, which some mystic Maya was at once obstinately doing and rigidly abstaining from doing in the two fractions of his existence. But it is clear that Brahman, the Supreme Being, must be aware both of the passivity and the activity and regard them not as his absolute being, but as opposite, yet mutually satisfying terms of his universalities. It cannot be true that Brahman, by an eternal passivity, is unaware, entirely separated from his own activity. Free, he contains them in himself, supports them with his eternal power of calm, initiates them from his eternal poise of energy. It must be equally untrue that Brahman in his activity is unaware of or separated from his passivity. Omnipresent, he is there supporting the action, possesses it, possesses it always in the heart of the movement, and is eternally calm and still and free and blissful in all the world of its energy. Nor in either silence or action can he be at all unaware of his absolute being, but knows that all he expresses through them draws its value and power from the power of that absolute existence. If it seems otherwise to our experience, it is because we identify with one aspect and by that exclusiveness fail to open ourselves to the integral reality.
So what you're saying is very interesting, and it's very satisfying for me, because I also use sometimes this mathematical formula. Okay, sometimes in matter we say 99.9% force and 0.01% consciousness. So he is also using mathematical images, 3/4 and 1/4. So it is satisfying to me personally. I didn't notice that earlier. Now what he's saying is that there are 3 levels, okay, which the Gita very clearly says. The problem is, man is very limited to the first level and the second level. The first level is our normal consciousness, the materialist. So that's a level 1. And the second is the spiritual planes of consciousness, level 2, where the Mayavadin and the Buddhists, they say that is the only truth. But they are not going to the third level. Gita very clearly says that there is a third level. Okay? So that's the beauty of the Gita's. So you can see how the greatness of the Gita is fantastic. So it goes to the third level, which is the Purushottama. So there is a Kshara Purusha, movement. Kshara means transient, moving. Kshara is that which is going on, moving. Okay? So that is the physical world. Your psychic being is in the physical world in the beginning. That's the Kshara Purusha. Then you go to the level 2, which is the Akshara Purusha. No movement, only static condition. So these two seem to be opposite to each other. If you remain there, that's what happens, and that's what happens to the human being, a yogi who goes there and thinks that this is not true, and the materialist says that is not true. Okay, so this is the position. But the Gita's beauty is that there is a third level. Okay, Uttama Purusha, the highest, and there you see that both are real and both are always together. Purusha and Prakriti are always together. Consciousness and force are always together. Okay, passivity and activity are always together in different proportions, and that's why he is talking of 3 force and 1 force. So it is not like that. There is another principle that we have to understand. The Brahman is not a summation of passivity and activity. You can't say that Brahman is a sum of passivity and activity. It's very similar to our human body. Okay, it is much more than that. It is more than the sum of the parts. Now, take our body. We have a liver, we have a heart, we have senses, we have nose, we have bones and all. So if I take all these things and dump them into a barrel, can I have a human body? No. The human body is much more than a sum of parts. There is something much more. Okay? Exactly in the same way, the Brahman is not passivity plus activity. It is much more than that. It is something organic. It is something which goes beyond both. So they are integrally one with each other. Okay? That's exactly, he often uses the word, the Brahman is not a summation of parts. Okay? It is much more than that. And the human body is a very good example of that. I can't take all these bones and stomach and eyes and all the 5 senses and dump them into a basket and say, here is a human body. No, it's much more than that. It's more than the sum of its parts. So, with this background, we'll see what he's saying. Okay? I'll quickly read each sentence. The supreme, not the level 1, level 2, but the level 3. The supreme, it has been declared in the Gita, exceeds both the immobile self and the mobile being. The immobile self is level 2 and the mobile being is level 1, our normal consciousness. Even put together, they do not represent all he is. This is what he meant by the Brahman is not a summation of parts. That's what he means by this phrase. Even put together, they do not represent all he is. He is much more than that. For obviously, we do not mean, when we speak of his possessing them simultaneously, that he is a sum of a passivity and an activity. An integer, a full number. An integer is a full number. Actually, he uses this image all the time. An integer and fractions. Our body, mind, life consciousness is a fraction. At the Brahman consciousness also is a fraction. Okay, it's not the full thing. It's far superior to the level 1, but still it's not an absolute truth. It's only part truth. In that case, an integer made of those 2 fractions, the fraction of level 1 and the fraction of level 2, passive with 3/4 of himself, active with 1/4 of his existence. Okay, so in that case, Brahman might be a sum of nations, because both level 1 and level 2 are both ignorances. So he is the ignorance plus ignorance does not make knowledge. That's what he's saying. Okay? In that case, Brahman might be a sum of nescences, a passive three-fourths, not only indifferent to, but quite ignorant of all the activity he is doing. The active one, one-fourth, quite unaware of the passivity and unable to possess it except by ceasing from action. So it is not like that. It is both together, much more than a summation. Even Brahman, the sum, might amount to something quite different from its two fractions. Fractions, very clear, na? Level 1 and level 2. Level 1, movement. Level 2, static condition. Dynamic and static. Ignorant of and irresponsible for anything which some mystic Maya was at once obstinately doing and rigidly abstaining from doing in the two fractions of his existence. Now he has brought in the question of Maya. Why? Because Maya is the one that really puzzles you. It is Maya that creates the world. Maya, if you remember, it has to be seen in a very interesting way. The real Maya is the power of the divine to create forms. Okay? But here, when you go only to level 2, you feel it's a mystery. That which I was seeing to be true is now not true. What is this? It's a magic. So he's using the word here in the sense of a magic. Okay? Which a mystic Maya was once obstinately doing and rigidly abstaining. Obstinately, because when we want to go from ignorance to knowledge, not so easy. The lower consciousness will obstinately deny the higher consciousness. That it's not easy to go from one level to another level. Okay? But at once obstinately doing and rigidly abstaining from doing in the two fractions of his existence. So, but it is clear that Brahman, the supreme being, must be supreme being, level 3. Okay, he has got both passivity and activity. Integrally, not summation. But it's clear that Brahman, the supreme being, must be aware both of the passivity and the activity and regard them not as his absolute being, but as opposite, yet mutually satisfying terms of his universe attributes. It cannot be true that Brahman, by an eternal passivity, is unaware, entirely separated from his own activities. Free, he contains them in himself, supports them with his eternal power of calm, initiates them from his eternal poise of energy. So, this sentence we can interpret in this way, that he is a transcendent without the universe. He cannot be so eternally present. But he creates the universe and becomes a cosmos. So he is a creator. Then the cosmos creates an individual consciousness. So he is there everywhere, and he is responsible for everything that is created. So this you can interpret that the divine is transcendental, cosmic, and individual at the same time. The implication is exactly what he's saying here. Okay? If it is not so, then that transcendent could not have created the universe, and the universe could not have created or having created, it could not go back to the level 2. Level 1 and level 2 are connected. That's what it means. They are not unconnected. Like you get the first impression, they are unconnected, but that's not true. Okay? So, it cannot be true that Brahman, by an eternal passivity, is unaware, entirely separated from his own activities. Activities, physical world. Free, he is completely free in level 2. He contains them in himself, supports them with his eternal power of calm, initiates them from his eternal poise of energy. Now look at that word. He is supporting them with his eternal power of calm. Okay? Calm is, normally we won't associate with power, but he's saying eternal power of calm. It's a power not to be able to move. Okay? So, not so easy to remain absolutely calm and movementless. Very difficult. It's a power. So, when he's saying supports them, we come back to the idea of the Gita, Bharta. He is supporting. Then initiating them. He is the creator. He is also the creator. Initiates them from his eternal poison energy. It must be equally untrue that Brahman in his activity is unaware of or separated from his activity, which happens to the individual soul when you go from level 1 to level 2. That's what we think. That there is a disconnection. That disconnection is an illusion. It's not a reality. Omnipresent, he is there supporting the action, possessing it always in the heart of the movement, and eternally calm and still and free and blissful in all the world of its energies. So now you come back to the Gita, the idea of the Bhokta. He is supporting, but he is also blissful and enjoying everything. So he is enjoying all that he has created. So in the Gita you have these. You have the, first of all you have the Sakshi, then the Anumanta, then the Jnata, then the Bharta, then the Bhokta, and finally you have Ishvara. So the divine is enjoying what he is doing, and that enjoyment is here reflected in the sentence by blissful. You can't be blissful if you are not enjoying. Enjoyment and blissfulness is, there is a connection between the two. This is what he said. And still free and blissful in all the world of its energies. The world of the energies is the physical world. Okay? Nor in either silence or action can he be at all unaware of his absolute being. So, the Brahman, even at level 1 and in level 2, is fully aware of level 3. But the individual has to realize it. He is not. When he is at level 1, he is not aware of level 2 and level 3. When he is in level 2, he is not aware of level 1 and level 2, 3. If he goes to level 3, he becomes aware of all. All is me. All is the Brahman. Soham asmi. Tattvam asi. Okay. These are the big statements of the Gita and also the Upanishads. The Tattvamasi and Sohamasmi and Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahman. These are the three great statements of the Upanishads, the Vedanta. They are in the Upanishads, not in the Gita. So, but the Gita says it in different words. It says Kshara Purusha, Akshara Purusha, Uttama Purusha. The same idea is repeated in different words. I go to the next sentence. Nor in either silence or action can he be all unaware of his absolute being. Absolute being, level 3. Okay? But knows that all he expresses through them draws its value and power. One second. Yeah. Nor in either, but knows that all he expresses through them draws its value and power from the power of that absolute existence. The value of the stone is not in the stone itself. That's a mistake we made. The value of gold is not in the gold itself. The value of gold is because there is a Satchidananda in it. That's what Srimad is saying. But we make that mistake all the time. We think of physical things as value, very valuable, but the value is coming only from the highest level. Otherwise, it's just nothing. It's just gold and mud are the same thing, as the Gita says. Stone and gold, there is no difference. If it seems otherwise to our experience, I'm reading the next sentence. If it seems otherwise to our experience, it is because we identify with one aspect and by that exclusiveness fail to open ourselves to the integral reality. Brahman is there everywhere at all times, but the individual has come down and he is, because of ignorance and limitation, he is not aware of all the three levels. He has to acquire them by concentration and yoga. That's it. So, it's already 8:40. So, we stop here today. It is a very interesting paragraph, and I don't know if you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'm reading it slowly, but every time you read, you get another aspect of it. So fantastic. Okay. Au revoir,
Merci
everybody.
beaucoup. Merci beaucoup.
Yes, ma'am. Au revoir, everybody.
Au revoir, Rangada. Au revoir, Philomon. Thank you, Rangada.
Okay.
Thank you, Rangada.